Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Allison Counts. I'm the marketing director for Candid Color Systems. We also have a retail photography business named Candid Color Photography that conducts all kinds of volume photography in and around Oklahoma. And graduations are something that we have specialized in since the 70s. There are a lot of variations of graduation or commencement ceremonies. If you're working with a middle school or an elementary school, you might hear these referred to as bridging or moving up ceremonies. Today, I'll primarily focus on high schools, and I'll begin by going over what makes a successful graduation job when we are not in a pandemic year. But do know that later in this session, I'll give tips and alternatives for those who might need to talk about safe, modified, or even virtual celebration options with your school contacts. Let's get started. We'll start with the photography, or rather the images that are important to your financial success. What do you think of first when you think of graduation photography? Probably this image, the handshake or the image of the grad crossing the stage. This is important. This is why the school wants to hire a photographer. Also, parents are typically not allowed close enough to the stage to get a good image. So this is also important to the grad and the parents. But this image can be a challenge. It's not always the best of the graduate or of the admin or the teacher. You may have tassel challenges with pesky swinging tassels. You may get the back of the head or the side of the head of the administrator or the grad. There's also a lot going on at this moment, so the speed of the process may result in not the best expression. And there's always this factor to consider. I don't know this person. If you're working with a large school especially, the graduate may not even know the administrator. But let's talk about a few things that you can control to make this image better. Here are a few tweaks. First and foremost, work with your school and do this ahead of time. Do not do it on the day of the event. Schools hate that. Try to get the school to transition to a more formal pose where the administrator takes just a second to pause and face the camera. They can be handing the diploma to the graduate or shaking hands, but the goal is to get both the admin and the grad to pause, look forward, and smile. When you're in this meeting, explain the benefits to the school. Show them examples. We have a handy guide that we take to school visits that helps to illustrate the difference. We talk about better exposure. Head size is the same for the graduate and the presenter. You see the face of the presenter. You can play to their vanity and tell them that the grads and families want to see their smiling face. Talk about how tassels are less of a problem. And while you're talking to the school about this more formal pose, you can gently discuss things like the pace of the ceremony. They may have time constraints with the venue if it's shared with another school, but even a moment to pause will result in a better experience for the graduate and better sales for you. Also, we suggest asking the school if you can put down some feet or tape marks on the stage so that the moment doesn't shift as the ceremony goes on. We have a shooting guide that discusses the equipment that we use for this moment as well if you're interested. Now on to the second shot. This pose is not typically why a school hires the photographer. They hire for stage and PR, but this could be most of your sales. So remember, if you don't take it, you can't sell it. This pose is typically captured when students exit the stage, but it could be taken before the stage crossing. For example, we sometimes capture this image at check-in or in a holding room and use it as a reference image. We'll talk more about the reference concept with production and marketing in a bit. Wherever you get this image, there needs to be a lot of care taken to not cause a backup in the ceremony, especially if it's a large ceremony. That is a sure way to get fired, having students back up onto the stage. That's where capturing this image either at check-in or in a holding room somewhere before the ceremony becomes a benefit. We also typically take this image using chroma key on a green or blue screen. More about this in a minute. You can see from the example picture here that in this case, our background for our second shot is well out of the way of the ceremony. This is for two reasons. It gives us a buffer if the students start to back up, and it's out of the view of the main ceremony, which is a common request from admin, especially if you're using green screen. However, if you get too far away from the stage, you risk students getting out of order, which could be a problem depending on your production method. In this case, we had 2 helpers getting students into the correct position for the second shot, keeping the flow and keeping their order. 1 school official and 1 staff member. A helper would tell the student on deck to turn their diploma right side up, straighten their tassel, and stand on their feet. So why green screen? Why do chroma key at all? Well, over 60% of our orders include one of these shots, and we think that's because they offer a huge deal of variety. We offer a wide variety of backgrounds, which include traditional studio looks, libraries, outdoor scenes, and even school-specific backgrounds. Offering school-specific scenes and artwork is also a great booking tool. But keep in mind, not every campus is super scenic, so definitely offer some other choices. We also find that green screen or blue screen is not as difficult with grads. The cap or the mortarboard really helps with the hair cutouts. And again, we have information about our equipment and our settings for this in the shooting guide that we offer. This is normally a very fast-paced station, and your equipment and your staff need to be able to keep up. And we know that you won't always be able to use green screen in every scenario for your second shot. A lot of our ceremonies have moved outside due to the pandemic. And in that case, we ideally want to use high-speed sync to get a great headshot of the grad with the ceremony blurred out behind them. Moving on to the other benefits of green screen, virtual groups. This has been a big deal in the last few months. Using those individual images that we've taken to create a group picture of the grads, sometimes this even replaces their senior class group picture that they may have taken. But it's a wonderful product to add to your offering, and it might even help you to book the business. If you're going to be building a virtual group from your green screen cutouts, then you want to consider what the pose looks like. For example, as you see here, will you have the graduates take a picture with their diploma, or will it be without their diploma? We also add names to our virtual groups whenever possible for added value. Processionals and recessionals. This is where the students process in or out, sometimes in a single file line, but sometimes they come in and out in pairs, which gets tricky. But this moment is something that we see a lot of photographers skip altogether or get wrong. We see these moments covered in a very journalistic style, but that won't sell. Any photographer involved in capturing this moment must really enjoy smiling. The goal is to get one graduate looking at you, cropped well, and smiling. If the subject is not looking at you and smiling, the extra poses seldom sell. This is critical to success. It doesn't make a small difference, it makes all the difference. Processionals commonly have 2 graduates walking side by side. Taking a photograph of the 2 of them together in the same image also seldom sells. In a big school, the 2 graduates may not even know each other. They may just be alphabetical. You must have a separate smiling photographer on each side of the moving line of graduates and shoot the single graduate closest to you. You can see the samples here. In the 2 images on the left, the grads are smiling. They look happy and pleasant, but the goal is the image on the right. So keep in mind, there are different kinds of photographers, those who naturally go out and interact. Go out and get yourselves a dolphin, someone who enjoys smiling all the time if you want to add more sales with processional pics. Here's a quick video showing this process and how quick you need to be and how aggressive about looking at the camera and smiling.
Look at her and smile. Thank you. Right here and smile. Thank you. Thank you. Look right here and smile. Thank you. Perfect. Look right here and smile. Thank you. Look right here and smile for us.
Now on to the PR and overview pictures. These are really important because these are primarily for the school. The school may use these for gifts for speakers and special guests. We typically return the images digitally, but sometimes the school requests that we give them prints or even plaques for gifts. Keep in mind to ask the school when you meet with them ahead of time what images are important. Be prepared for any special moments that may occur because you may need special equipment for things such as an overview picture or fireworks, or you may even need additional staff so that you can get to these moments. For example, you may need one staff member at the top of the gym, but another stationed down low so they can get outside in time for the graduates to toss their caps. We also incorporate these images into some of our products and galleries. Grads may want a picture of the fireworks or their caps in the air or an important guest speaker along with their images. Now, last but definitely not least, we have the friends and family images. These are really profitable images if you know how to do this right. We treat these more like party pictures or social photography. These images are typically captured after the ceremony, and that could be complicated when you have a venue with multiple back-to-back ceremonies. You may need some staff that are dedicated to this while other staff members get prepared for the next ceremony. A few important points about friends and family images. First, these must include the graduate. There's really no point in taking them without the graduate. Sometimes family beat the graduates outside, but just because the family are milling about doesn't mean their pics will sell. So wait for those grads. The photographers also need to interact to get enough good images to be successful at this. We talk a lot about this in our social photography training. Don't ask someone if they want a picture. Tell them. Say, get together. If a photographer is hustling, they can take 3 to 4 unique, good, saleable images per minute. So definitely set a goal for your photographers who will be doing this. The photographer will take pictures of family in different groupings with the grad. For example, mom and dad and the grad together, then grandma and grandpa with the grad together, and so on. So you'll have multiple combinations of the same family members. The friends and family photos will then be added to each graduate's personal gallery of images, which we'll talk more about later. Take buddy shots whenever possible. And sometimes it can be hard to capture buddy shots after the ceremony when family is in the mix. So if you can, capture these images before the ceremony in that holding room or a check-in space. That's what's ideal. We typically see that we can earn $2 to $3 per image taken in extra revenue for friends and family and buddy shots. So remember, it's a numbers game. The more you take, the more you make. Now on to the marketing and sales of all of these great images. Once you have multiple good images of the grad, the key to grad marketing success is the data, and it needs to be good data. You can collect it from the school, but ideally their list would just be supplemental, and you would collect newer and more complete data for your own use at the ceremony or sometime right before the ceremony. We collect email addresses, multiple good email addresses. We ask for the student for their email for after graduation. A lot of schools provide students with a .edu address now, and those are no good to you after the ceremony. The school will also frequently block mass emails or outside emails coming to their .edu accounts. So get mom and dad's email. They're the buyer anyway, but also get grandma and grandpa and another permanent email for the grad. We also collect cell phone numbers. Those mobile phone numbers we'll be able to use to text a link to buy their pictures. And again, make sure to get these for mom and dad because they're the buyer. And we collect physical addresses. We don't always use these, but sometimes they become important. More about that in a minute. So how do you collect all of this wonderful data that's so important? The most basic way to collect this information is the tried and true grad reader card. Now, I know what you're thinking. We do everything in our power to go paperless, and that can work for grads too, which we'll discuss. But this basic method works, so we'll talk about it first. This is both a tool you use to collect data and a service you offer to the school. Again, you need to talk to the school about this ahead of time. You don't want to show up at the ceremony and find out they won't allow you to collect data. If you don't have a way to collect data and do your own marketing, consider not shooting it. The premise of the grad reader card is that schools often use cards to provide the student's name to an announcer. The announcer takes the card and the grad's name, and then their name is read aloud as the student crosses the stage. You, as the photographer, offer to provide those cards. So one side has space for the student's name and the phonetic spelling of their name, and the other side has your information, a space to collect data. Again, we collect as much data as possible. And we collect a few identifying traits as well, such as the grad's hair color if they have glasses. This card can be the way in which you identify the graduates in software, although we have other automated ways now. But if you don't want to take any additional equipment out on a shoot, you can have the reader or staff member keep these cards in order, which is why you'll actually see a hole in the center of this card as a sample. That is used to put a stringer through the cards as they're read to keep them in order. We have other backup methods like a basic audio recording too. After the student turns in their card to the reader, they walk across the stage, take their formal handshake photo, and in most cases, exit the stage for their second shot unless you secured that before the stage. So here is a quick video of a large, fast-paced ceremony where you can see the students hand off their card.
Cole Odell, Jacob Andrew Spiegel, Ryan Richard Mullins.
That was just a quick example of where the reader card comes into play in the process. Now, what happens if the school doesn't want to use your reader cards? Sometimes a school wants to pre-print cards with names so they can positively identify a student, or so the announcer doesn't have to read students' handwriting during the ceremony. Understandable. You can ask the school if they would be willing to print their information on stickers and place the school's information sticker on your card, keeping the back to collect the data. Or an alternative, you can ask to attend the rehearsal to collect the data. Most schools have a rehearsal for their commencement, and that is a much lower stress environment. Or with the school's approval, you could ask to pass out and collect the grad cards while the grads are lined up or at the check-in. In this case, consider a dedicated staff member to pick up the cards before the line processes and to make sure the cards are completed. Students get easily distracted. These cards are worth real money, and we believe every email address to be worth $13 to $15, sometimes more for more affluent schools. So failure to collect all of the information costs real dollars. Okay, so you're not into paper. We understand. We are not either. We alternatively, and sometimes in addition to, use a registration process. That can be an on-site registration or something done in advance. The on-site registration looks something like this: a poster or a sign with a QR code that links to our registration site where we collect the data that we need for the marketing. You can see from the picture that grads can use their own cell phones. We use this method a lot during the pandemic to avoid paper and the sharing of pens. Plus, it eliminates data entry, which makes us more profitable. The thing to keep in mind is that you really need a way to confirm that the grad completed this data. In our case, the data drops into a tablet at our photographer's station. But it's good to have someone upstream if you're new to the process. They can ask to see the confirmation screen once a grad has completed the registration, then you can let them proceed. And this works in cases where the school is not going to announce the names or where they have another method to provide the names to the announcer and they don't need your grad reader cards. Alternatively, you can email and or text a link to families to register to see their grads' images in advance. Very similar process, but it's done ahead of time by you, the photographer, emailing a list that the school provides, or by the school sending out links on your behalf. We would, of course, prefer to have control over how many emails go out and the frequency, but either way works to collect the data. So now that we have all of the images and data, what else do we typically do to market the images successfully? For our green screen or blue screen images, or it could be with another knockout service, we do what we call pre-rendering, or simply add a background before they go into the grad's personal gallery. Pre-rendering is an important part of our process. It seems that people do love choices, but sometimes they either lack the vision or the time to create their own. So for those people, we add at least one of our most popular backgrounds before posting the images into the gallery. Typically, there's an expense to this, either in your time or using a service. So you want to be somewhat cautious with how many that you do and make sure it's one of your top sellers. We also use that second shot or that portrait shot, and we create additional images using an automated cropping service. This automated cropping process can also be handy to fix imperfections like shooting off the background, maybe a hot spot or glare on the diploma. Sometimes it's even hand signs or gestures. But this creates additional images without additional photographers. So more images is better. It helps us to sell those larger packages, and this is a great tool. So how do we bring all of these together? What do we do with all of these images? We create one personal gallery for each graduate. This includes all of the images taken of that graduate, plus any PR pictures that we think families might be interested in, such as an overview shot of the graduation, pictures of fireworks, or the grad caps in the air. Their gallery will also include the pre-rendered backgrounds that we added and the original image cutout, so that they can also have the opportunity to select their own backgrounds and see what they might look like as a finished product. We call this process dynamic green screen. And you can see we have the green screen here in our sample gallery. A customer simply click on that and see their background choices. We provide a set of background choices that we think apply most to that particular ceremony first, and then a wide variety of backgrounds that they can choose from beyond that. So what they would likely see first are their school-specific or event-specific backgrounds. We also include in this personal gallery the processional pictures and the friends and family pictures. So more on how we get all these images tied together into the gallery in just a moment. You can also have a personal password to this gallery. We're already linking grads directly to just their pictures, no one else's pictures, but you can add what we call a PIN number for added security. We don't suggest doing this unless it's absolutely required, because any barrier you set between getting to their personal images will reduce your sales. So how do we get people to their images? How do we market the images? We use proactive marketing, primarily using email and texting. We don't do passive marketing or ask the school to send out a link to a giant gallery for the entire event and hope that people will come and look for all of their pictures in that gallery. We're very proactive. We use personalized emails with the grad's picture inserted and their name. We typically insert that into the subject line for the first several emails, so we have a higher open rate. We send the first email out as quickly as possible, no later than 24 hours after the event. We'll talk more about speed in just a moment. We do the same thing with the text messages, sending a link to the graduate's personal gallery via text as quickly as possible. And these emails and text messages, again, go directly to their personal gallery. They're not seeing other graduates' pictures. We also create urgency with a deadline. We suggest 2 weeks or less for your deadline date, which is another reason it's really important to get those images online quickly. Even images as important as a graduation or commencement ceremony, they tend to lose some of their value over time. So the faster you can get them in the hands for people to make a purchase, the higher your sales are going to be. So we have our deadline date and we have higher prices after the deadline date. So we encourage people to order early and save. We continue with these emails, especially for those who haven't purchased in a higher frequency before the deadline date than we do afterwards. We also have the option to mail what we just consider paper proofs. It's a very traditional marketing method, but we do see that 98% of our orders arrive online. But we see a bump in our sales when we send these proofs out. So we send them out, we include the graduate's pictures. It's not always every single picture taken of the graduate. We're trying to drive people online to make a purchase. So it's okay to say you'll see more images online. It's okay to say you'll see more products online. So we just highlight our top selling products. If it's green screen, if we were able to capture a green screen image, then we put only our top selling backgrounds on this piece as well. But again, we're trying to drive people to purchase online, and this just serves as a reminder, but we're really highlighting that deadline date. So you have to make sure if you do send these that they get into the hands of the potential buyer prior to that deadline date, or you'll have some upset potential buyers. We also use this as an opportunity to send out stuffers that might highlight special products. Either for the grads, sometimes it's something special for the school. Like for example, we might be marketing their senior class group image at the same time. Maybe that was created using a virtual group process, but sometimes we put additional things in this mailing. You can save money on the postage by waiting until after a few days or even a week has gone by, and then only mailing to those who have not placed an order yet. But again, if you have a deadline date, you want to make sure to get these in the hands of people before that deadline date so they're not upset. We also continue our marketing for several years, commonly 5 years, but even more today, we're sending a couple of emails even after the 5-year mark. But the ongoing marketing is key, especially after that deadline date up until the 1-year mark. That's extremely valuable. We'll talk about more of our sales over time in just a few moments, but we do all kinds of things. We highlight products, maybe it's a plaque or a framed print. We also have a lot of holiday specials, but certainly sending continued marketing messages is a really important piece of your potential success. Now on to the production. This includes organizing the images, getting data entered, and tying it all together to get online, to go into the graduates' personal galleries, and to begin to do your marketing. The first thing that I have to stress is that no matter what method you're using, you must be fast. Images need to be online and the marketing needs to begin within 24 hours or preferably less. The longer you wait, the more it will negatively impact your sales. So you really need to have someone scheduled and ready to go to do this kind of work. Whenever we have traveled for ceremonies, we've even gone so far as to enter the data while riding in the car on the way back to the office or scanning the cards so someone can do the data entry back in the office, having production staff waiting. We know that this is seemingly like a daunting task, but we scheduled this data entry and this production to be ready and waiting, not the next day, but immediately as soon as we can get the data and the images to the production staff. Typically, for what I would call a traditional method where you're using the grad reader card and you need to enter the data off of that card and you're not using any kind of technology on site, such as a tablet, then we would plan for 1 hour of labor for every 30 graduates, or roughly 2 minutes per grad. And that is, again, doing the uploading, the data entry, ID the images, putting the images online, and then triggering your email and text marketing. And maybe if you plan to do it, getting your proof mailing all queued up and ready to go out the door. And then certainly, last but definitely not least, checking everything once it's online to make sure that you're happy with it. Now, there are ways to reduce this time and eliminate labor. You can certainly eliminate labor and be faster in terms of getting things online by using an online registration, either on site or in advance. Certainly, again, you can get data from the school, but again, we suggest that you supplement data from the school with more data that you collect. You still need a method to identify the images. And we normally keep the images in the same order that we have our cards, and then we do what we call aligning the different shots that we've taken. Or sometimes we use that portrait shot, that second shot, as what we call a reference image. And then we tie as many of the images that we can to that reference image using facial recognition. This works really well to get the processional or the friends and family or buddy shot images into the grad's gallery using that facial recognition. But there are several methods, and you can have an event online within minutes. So if you're interested in diving more into the production piece of it further, then definitely let me know. I'll provide my email address at the end. So on to the products. What do we sell? One really important piece of the pie are what we call mix and match packages. We use several of the graduates' images to create a package, and we typically only offer this on our top sized packages. And this is why it's important to have a lot of really good images of the graduate to drive people to those larger packages. This is really proven to increase our sales substantially. Retouching is also very important in the graduation market. These are important images and important products for people in their lives. Certainly our middle school and our high school market definitely are very interested in different kinds of retouching. We typically include the retouching also in our top packages. We also include a lot of finished products for sale, such as plaques or tassel framed or other kind of framed prints. We also customize for the school as much as possible. This includes their school colors, their logo or crest. Titles are very important. Titles are also something that provide an added value and an additional difference between your images and products and what mom or dad took with their cell phone. We even add titles and graphics to our digital downloads in many cases. Also extremely important to your financial success, we charge shipping on these orders. Certainly, this is something that you can waive as part of your occasional marketing methods or efforts, but we typically will charge $5 for a standard order, and every order is being mailed out to the buyer. Keeping in mind that people are not coming back to the school after a graduation or commencement in many cases, especially in the case of a high school, they may not be coming back on campus for anything. So we're mailing all these things to the buyer, which is typically the parent or grandparent, aunt, uncle, sending that to their home directly. We're adding on shipping, and this is additional revenue for us on each and every order. We also typically will charge separate additional shipping for some of our larger products, and this gives you some marketing flexibility. For example, our large framed pieces will add additional shipping. Now, before we talk about some alternatives to a traditional graduation or commencement ceremony, especially for those schools that are virtual or considering staying virtual for their events, let's talk about a few numbers that are important. This is a quick peek at how important each one of these images that we suggest is to the financial success of the event. You can see if you leave any of these out, that your sales will definitely be lower. Having a combination of all these different images will definitely help you achieve better sales. There are also quite a few things that you should track in order to make sure that you're being successful in your graduation efforts. We track how many images that we have taken per graduate, how many emails we've collected per graduate, how many cell phone numbers we've collected, and how long it takes to post the images. So when we're trying to compare sales year to year, we have all that information to make sure there's not some outlying factor impacting the sales one way or another. And then we look at the dollars per graduate photographed, not just your sales average, because we need to be looking at how many people buy as well. So we look at it as dollars per grad. Here's a peek at how important the ongoing marketing can be to your financial success. You can see that if you stopped your marketing after the initial deadline date and didn't send any more messages, how much money that you would be leaving on the table. And the same can be said after 30 days and after 60 days, even after a year. You may think, oh, that's just 3%, or maybe it gets up to 4 or 5%, but those are highly profitable dollars. You've long since paid for your labor and all of the production on this job. So why not get those additional sales? There are all kinds of reasons that people need to order later. Maybe they forgot a family member, they have money now, they got their paycheck, maybe they just couldn't get to it with all the busy events. So certainly we keep our ongoing marketing for a multitude of reasons, and it's very, very important to do. Here's just a glance at what you might think that you could make for different types of schools. So your middle schools, typically these are easier to book. There's less competition. Again, if you go out to have a sales call, you might be asking them about a graduation and they say, we don't have a graduation, but it might be called a moving up ceremony or bridging or fall under some other name. So you need to make sure to ask them. Maybe they have a different name for an event that you're looking for, but typically you can see $10 to $15 per middle school graduate photographed, and we see a 35 to 40% buy rate. Certainly there are things that you can do to increase that. This is just kind of standard run of the mill, a typical demographic middle school. And for high schools, we typically see again $15 to $17 per graduate photographed with a 40% buy rate. Whenever we're taking those friends and family pictures, we see that buy rate tend to go up. So those are an important piece of the pie. Again, you'll also probably see sales higher than this if you have a more affluent school. And certainly where a school, you're able to take additional really good images. Obviously, in this case, the students and the families, the buyers are seeing the images before they make a purchase. So the quality of the images will really impact your sales. And now on to the fun part, our tools for virtual and safe ceremonies. When the pandemic hit, like most of you, we had to pivot, and now we have literally written the book on virtual and safe ceremony options. All these tools or options that we put together give us a great reason to go and talk to our schools and come up with a solution. Things such as a completely virtual ceremony, a modified safe ceremony, maybe it's a drive-through, virtual groups, composites, friends and family shoots, and even celebration boxes and products. So why would you want to consider doing a virtual ceremony? You can make money putting together and creating the content for the virtual ceremonies. You can charge for this. You can also sell additional products and services when you do that. But really, these tools are a great reason to get a conversation started with your school or the organization that may lead to another in-person kind of opportunity. So we'll start talking about the options if you are able to work out taking something in person, some kind of photographic opportunity with the school. What would that look like in general? You would have your photographic opportunity, a safe, modified, or even drive-through ceremony. You would create some kind of graphics. We call them personal achievement graphics. You might even create a virtual group picture. If you're unable to collect data and images for any reason at the in-person, then you can collect this data via a registration link. Then you take the achievement graphics that you've made and put them into a video. And then we create what we call a celebration page, which we'll talk more about in a moment. In order to get the school comfortable with having some kind of an in-person opportunity, you really need to stress the safety of your approach to the schools. Zero touching, your touch-free process, maintaining social distance, not handling any forms. You can see we put together the signage and handled the spacing so the school didn't have to do that. When the students arrived, we had a QR code. They would simply point their phone at that. They're all used to that, especially if they have Snapchat. The QR reader is built in, pointed at the QR, it pulls up a registration screen. The graduate completes all the information that we need to collect. And then their information dropped into our tablets, so we didn't have to exchange any kind of forms. We simply asked for their name, selected their name, and then you can see we had multiple stations in order to keep people spaced apart. Sometimes these are in a school hallway, sometimes they're in a bigger space. In this particular example, we were able to also take a picture of the students crossing the stage, kind of like in a real ceremony. And that was something that we suggested walking through the auditorium to the school. In this case, the administrator didn't feel comfortable having their mask off near a student, which makes sense. So they stood 7 feet behind and they kept their mask on while the student took theirs off for the photo. We even had situations where we put in an administrator as a background and added it with our chroma key images. We added a lot of variety, just like we do with normal graduations, to make sure they had a lot of things to choose from. We also paid special attention in our virtual, safe, and modified ceremonies to adding school-specific graphics. Those really help to increase sales. And we had some instances where we were able to set up senior family shoots. And these were really wonderful and had really wonderful sales. So we had the school invite the families to come in. They signed up for time slots with their graduate. You can see some examples here. We cut out the background in this case, so we had a wide variety of backgrounds that they could choose from because people were coming in all different kinds of clothes. And so they could pick out something that worked with their clothes and worked with their decor. But the students were in their cap and gown and the families were able to bring in signs. They sometimes, brought in a lot of fun things that had to do with the graduate, but the families make great props themselves. But our family shoots were really profitable. We had shoots that earned $40 per graduate with family that came in. So that's not a sales average. That's just for every graduate that walked through the door with a family, we earned $40. Another popular thing, again, virtual groups. Here's an example of a really large class. We were able to book this in-person opportunity because we had the virtual group option. We had 863 kids. So this was something the school really wanted. It took the place of their senior class group that wasn't able to happen. And then we were able to get the in-person portrait opportunity along with it. So again, why do you do the virtual groups? Just as I said, it's all about the individual sales, those portrait opportunities. You can also offer more poses aside from the virtual group pose, different background selections, wide variety of products, but the school is really focused on getting that group picture that might be replacing an opportunity like their senior class picture. Alternatively, we did a lot of this drive-through option this last spring and summer where schools can arrange for the students to come and take their photos. It might be a situation where they're picking up their diploma, which also saves the school the mailing costs. The grads wear their cap and gown. They might even be picking it up at the event. And you take a few quick pictures of the student. And sometimes, even if their family is allowed to get out of the vehicle, then you might take pictures with the family as well. But we take pictures of, or did, of students in the car and outside of the vehicle if the school allowed it. Now, what does it look like if you have an all virtual opportunity? We create our primary product for a virtual ceremony, which is called a personal achievement graphic, or the PAG. And these include anything from the school logo or kind of a mascot or crest, the student's name. Certainly you can have some custom information. If you want to collect it, it could be a quote, it could be the student picture. If you're not able to collect student pictures, either from an in-person opportunity or if the school doesn't want you to collect them through a registration opportunity, then you could just have a quote or the school name along with the school logo and the school colors. But it is very easy to collect images using a registration tool and allow those to go into these achievement graphics. Then we take those achievement graphics and roll them into a ceremony video, which is essentially a slideshow of all the graphics. We can return that to the school as a high resolution MP4, and we can include pomp and circumstance or even the names being electronically read, or sometimes it's no audio and the school adds in their own school song, or maybe it's their chorus singing something while the slideshow plays. We also offer what we call a celebration page, and this is just a custom web page for each school with their name and their logo and their branding. And we can host that ceremony or slideshow video and up to 10 other videos from the school. Sometimes the school will combine a video of their valedictorian or salutatorian speaking with our video, and sometimes they're treated as separate videos, and they can all be placed on this page. We also host the PAGs or personal achievement graphics here, and a user could go here and click on these and share them directly to social media right from this page. If you have a large school, you can filter by different categories and even search by name so you can find them more quickly. We also offer what we call animations, and these are not a part of the ceremony video, but they are a video product, but for each individual to share on social media. Sometimes the school might have a senior class or another organization, maybe the PTA, that has leftover budget because of not having different events, and they might want to add these in as a different way to celebrate their seniors. But these are great. They're typically ordered in bulk for the entire senior class or the entire school, and then the students can download these and play these on social media. Once you have all this content, including their name, quotes, logos, student pictures, you can create a lot of other products that you could sell to help honor your seniors. Certainly yard signs were all the rage last spring, but we did a lot of plaques and other things like framed prints. We also sold things that didn't necessarily have a picture on them, which is another opportunity. This is one of my favorite. We call it a spirit stick, and we have these with all different kinds of themes, and you can change them for the school logo, the school colors. We have different quotes, and certainly you change the year. We have a lot of different tools that we use to sell these things. Certainly schools need to see examples. You can find some samples of these on our website on candid.com under the Grad Photo Network and Virtual Ceremony Tools section. We also have things that we'd be willing to share with you. If you want to contact me, my email address is right here, allisonc@candid.com. But we have different flyers and emails, logos, PowerPoint, all different kinds of things to help you explain these different tools and options. So we hope that something that we've presented here could be of help to you. If we can help you with anything going forward, certainly reach out. We would love to talk to you. Thanks so much.